Welcome back to Long Distance Worklife, where we help you lead, work, and thrive in remote and hybrid teams. I'm Marisa Eikenberry, a fellow remote worker, and joining me is my co-host and remote work expert, Wayne Turmel. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, Marisa. How are you?
I'm great. We're tackling pet peeves today. Are you excited?
I love when people get a chance to vent. That makes me so happy.
Well, I'm happy that we get to do this because, oh my gosh, I put out a question on my personal social media, so Twitter, LinkedIn, and my Facebook, and said, what do you hate about virtual meetings? And 9 of you responded, which does not sound like a lot, but in podcast world, that's a pretty big number, which also tells you, connect with me to get on the show. But anyway.
Look at you.
Haha.
When we started this show a year ago, she was like, I guess you could kind of contact me if you want. Now she's like the queen of social media.
I try. But anyway, so we asked you guys, what do you hate about virtual meetings? So many of you responded. Thank you. We're not going to be able to get through all of them in this show, so we're going to have multiple episodes just like we do with our other pet peeves. So keep sending those in. But I'm going to start with Sam Roberts from Twitter, who says, attention spans are shorter and we're fighting against countless distractions. This means facilitators need to do more prep and think of how to keep the agenda moving to keep things interesting. I pressed a little harder just to say, like, okay, so you're saying to keep things interesting, like how are facilitators supposed to do that? She said that for her, she changes up what she's doing every 6 minutes. So thoughts on that as a facilitator for longer than I've been alive?
I think the instinct is right, which is that people do have short attention spans. Now, some of this it's amazing. Attention span is within the normal realms. Like if you keep it inside an hour, attention span is discretionary. People are really good at paying attention to things that matter to them.
Right.
And we are really good at tuning out things that our brain goes, don't care, don't want to know. Oh, look, squirrel. Right. So some of this starts before the meeting. I wrote a book, and I know it's a little bit outdated, so this is not a plug for the book. But the title of the book was Meet Like You Mean It. Mm-hmm. Still pretty good advice. Right? Why are we meeting? Is this something that needs to happen? Do the people that we've invited need to be there, and will they add value to the time together? Is this the best alternative as opposed to discussion threads or other asynchronous kind of things? But let's assume for a moment that you have actually made a conscious decision that this meeting matters.
Yes. And I assume you have an agenda for said meeting.
Well, that's the next part is, do people know why they're there? Do they know what's expected of them? Do they know what the desired outcomes are? Have you prepared them to hit the ground running?
Right.
And all of that is before you even start your presentation. Now, her point about every 6 minutes, we try to change this is absolutely right. I have said before and gotten in trouble for saying that human beings are like raccoons.
Yes.
We're attracted by color, light, and motion.
Yes.
Are there things going on? And there's a fourth thing on there, which is sound. One of the cardinal sins of online meetings is people hear the same voice for a very long time.
Right.
And after a while, our brains can only physically maintain focus on a single voice for a short period of time. After that, you turn into Charlie Brown's teacher.
Right.
And it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, so we all had one of those teachers.
the 6 minute rule is fine. It's a perfectly valid rule. I try to do that by not making people hold their questions till the end. Mm-hmm. Right? Doing check-ins, and not just any questions. Okay, good. But legitimate check-ins every little bit. If you are presenting a slide deck, for example, I actually decide as I'm building my presentation where I want to stop and take questions.
Yeah, you actually coached me on this, on something I'm going to do this weekend, and that was the idea, that in between we're asking them questions about stuff that's relating to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I know I've mentioned this before. There's this concept called the Herrera limit, which is that we can only take in 7 pieces of information, because information comes into our short-term memory, we process it, we decide what we need to keep and what we don't, and what's worth remembering, and we move that to the, oh yeah, got to remember that pile, and that makes room for more stuff.
Yeah.
If, as is often the case, because we're trying to cram a bunch of stuff into a short period of time, you just turn on the fire hose.
Yes.
And just one way push information to people, you are going to hit that Herrera limit wall very early.
And then wonder why they forgot XYZ.
And then wonder, well, I told them. Now, there are a couple of things I'm going to say to this, specifically about attention span, because I know we've got a bunch of other cool stuff that we want to address. Number one is, don't be afraid of handouts, reference material, stuff that people can look at later.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to give them everything and walk them all through it at that point.
Right.
If you can give them the information beforehand, that will be immensely helpful. But that requires something else. And this is something that managers don't want to talk about, but it's really important.
Okay.
And that is that meeting behavior is a piece of their job performance.
Yeah.
And it needs to be coached like a performance management issue. And that covers both ends of the spectrum. If people are dominating the meetings and not being respectful and not giving people a chance to talk, that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
If people are constantly logging on and I'm talking about a convergence of problems. None of these are in and of themselves deal breakers. But if they come on to the meeting and they don't get their, they're not on camera and they don't participate and they're constantly on mute the whole time, and they basically whine and complain and don't contribute in the chat or anything else, at some point in your one-on-ones as a manager, you should go, you're awful quiet on the meetings. What's going on?
Yeah, it makes you look like you're not a team player.
And the problem is that that becomes a perception problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when you address that, why aren't you speaking up in meetings? You actually learn stuff. Right? Like, I probably shouldn't be on that meeting anyway. Or I don't want to say anything because you know how Bob is.
Right.
Right, which tells you that there's a team dynamic issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
It's like with the camera, why don't you want to be on camera? Well, I just hate it. Well, sucks to be you.
Yeah, or is it a bandwidth issue, in which case you can't really have it
on?
Is it a bandwidth
issue?
You can't hear anybody else.
My kids are running around. Is it I just got back from the gym? And if it's I just got back from the gym, maybe a little more notice before you call a meeting.
Yeah.
Right? None of these things individually are deal breakers. But when you put them all together, it starts to affect people's ability to pay attention in the meeting.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
If you meet like you mean it,
yes,
right, and you plan it and you do the work up front and you hold people accountable, or I'm sorry, I used bad language. When you help people be accountable, okay. I don't want Kevin on my case.
I'm going to send just that clip to him directly.
Oh, would you? Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. When you help people be accountable, will make a difference. The thing is that meeting behavior over time has kind of devolved because we've allowed it to be devolved. We haven't addressed it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says anything. I'm so busy trying to get through the meeting that, I'm just as glad Marisa kept her mouth shut because I got to get stuff done.
Right. You only have so much time to do it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question, but thank you, Sam, for sending that in. And so Chat Tsunami on Twitter said the stereotypical jokes that we said pre-COVID, and we get it. Our mic is muted, and I'm wearing trousers. Let it go. And they also mentioned that breakout sessions are the bane of their existence, which I don't think we've talked about breakout sessions before.
We haven't. I mean, to the first part.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
people in the office still tend to resent those who don't go into the office every day and will take their little digs.
Right.
Yes, you are correct. We should have gotten past that point by now.
Yeah, I mean, 1/3 of my working life has been this pandemic, remote work, whatever.
Say that again louder for the people in the back, because we were talking about this before we started recording, and it's such an important point.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm 31. I started working at this organization literally the Monday after I graduated college. So I've worked here for 9 years. And 1/3 of my working life has been this pandemic, remote work stuff, which is kind of wild when you really think about it.
It's incredibly wild. And it means that what was normal in the before times, or what was novel or weird, no longer is.
Right.
And we need to just deal with that and get on with it. So I think that's a valid point. What the topic of breakout rooms is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've only been in some. I know for me, it depends on the meeting that I'm in. So sometimes I don't mind the breakout session because I'm excited about whatever we're talking about and we're going to talk about this project, or I like who I'm in the breakout session with. But I've also been in some where, we're volunteer organizations that I'm in that are talking about leadership stuff. For me, I'm like, I don't even really need to be here because I already know this, but that's beside the point. So I get pulled into a breakout room for them, and I'm like, cool, we're going to answer these really fluffy questions that don't really matter. And then we're going to come in and talk about it and yay, rah, rah. So I think sometimes it depends on how the breakout session is done.
Okay. Like everything else, if you're going to do something, understand why you're doing it.
Right.
You said something which is fluffy whatevers.
Right? And we've all been in those.
We have established on this show that Wayne is not a fan of fluffy icebreakers. They irritate me in general.
Right. We have a whole video.
I can suck it up and do them
of icebreakers,
but I'd rather get to the business at hand. So if you are going to do remote breakout rooms, why are you doing them? In training, there is a very reasonable reason, which is sometimes you want different groups to discuss different things. Sometimes it's because you generally get better input in groups of 4 or 5 than you would in a room full of 20.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets to speak. Your introverts aren't as intimidated, or, the groups tend to generate better discussion. And then they come out and they debrief, and it's generally better input.
Yeah.
And it's also a great way to jumpstart a meeting that otherwise people join and they go on mute and there's nothing happening at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing them just to give them something to do, they are not going to be looked on fondly.
Right.
So, they should be relevant to the topic at hand. They should not put people in an embarrassing situation. I think breakout rooms can be very helpful, and they're especially helpful if you have the same people, the same large group of people, and they've done it a few times. The first time you use a breakout room, it's weird and awkward and people aren't really sure. how it works and what they're supposed to do. Once they've done it a couple of times and it becomes standard operating procedure, they can be very helpful. But you need to have a specific outcome, that there is a reason we've broken you into small groups. This is what we want. We tend to be very prescriptive. We're in a class and we send people into breakout rooms. We will, as part of the instructions, say things like, the person whose next birthday it is going to report out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you don't have to do this. Well, do you want to do it? Well, what about you?
Exactly. It's, here's your assignment, get to work. Oh, look, you're finished your work. Let's report out. Your work is important. We're seeking your input. We respected your input. We've acknowledged your input, and it's added value to the meeting.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just to have something light and fluffy to do, and I suspect the person who sent that in, A, is male.
Yes. I know this person, so yes.
Yeah, okay. So, probably not as grumpy and old as me, but certainly grumpy and male. And probably focused on, let me do my work. Let's get to work. Let's do what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And so the value of the breakout rooms isn't as apparent.
Yes.
Because it's being seen as soft and fluffy and getting in the way of the desired outcome of the meeting.
Right. I mean, just like we talk about all the time, clear communication is key there.
But it's like everything else. If you're going to do something in a meeting, what is the reason for it?
Yeah, don't waste people's time.
If everybody knows everybody, if this team has been together forever, how much of an icebreaker do you really need?
Right.
And do we need to go through the mechanics of breaking out into a room and coming back to, well, most of us went to the movies this weekend? That doesn't help.
Right. Yeah, but if it's like, hey, we have this one problem that we need to solve, and we're going to pull you into breakout sessions so you guys can talk about, how we might be able to approach this, it's a little different.
Well, or a really common one is, you signed up for this course, you signed up for this meeting. What is your top priority? What is the thing that worries you the most about this?
Yeah.
What are you most concerned about? That is a very legitimate use. And as the larger the group gets, the more you need to do that. Because if you get above the team level, right? If you get above 6, 7, 8 people, just the group dynamics are going to dictate that some people are going to talk and some people are going to hide.
Right.
Breakout rooms, if used properly and properly managed, can draw information and involve those people who might otherwise hide or not be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But we have so many more. Like I said, we had 9 people respond, and I'm so excited to get to more of these in future episodes. If you have one, please make sure to send it in. And listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Long Distance Work Life. For show notes, transcripts, and other resources, make sure to visit longdistanceworklife.com. If you haven't yet, subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes. And while you're there, be sure to like and review. This helps us know what you love about our show. Feel free to contact us via email or LinkedIn or any of our social media profiles. Those are all in our show notes. And let us know.
And you should know by now that Marisa is apparently the queen of social media, and she does listen when people tell her stuff. So, yes.
It's really true. If you want to talk to somebody about the podcast, talk to me. That is not a secret. But anyway, if you have pet peeves, if you have topics that you want us to tackle, if, thoughts, general, whatever, like, email us, talk to us, send me a message. I get so excited when I hear from listeners, so please do that. And if you'd like to learn more about remote teams, order Wayne and Kevin Eikenberry's new book, The Long Distance Team. You can learn more about the book at longdistanceteambook.com. Thanks for joining us. And as Wayne likes to say, don't let the weasels get you down.